welcome back to Garden Studio. I'm Tessa Pinner, a designer and gardener in upstate South Carolina, Zone 8A. Today's video is an early spring cottage garden tour. I did one of these in January, so about 2 months ago, where there wasn't a lot going on, and now the garden is starting to look and feel a bit more like spring, which is very exciting. There's a lot more green, there's a lot more growth coming out, and there are a few fun updates to share with you. Come along. I call this bed my shade garden, and eventually I would love for it to be this whole space, but right now it's a very packed, floriferous border with Lenten roses, hydrangeas. This is a shade euphorbia, which I think the lime green in spring is so fun, and it spreads underground by runners. I don't mind that. You do have to be careful with euphorbias of any kind because they have a kind of milky sap if you break the stems, but I think they're just so fun. Give a really nice punch to this shady bed. I have ferns, some toad lilies, some other fun things, arum lilies that come up in hostas a little bit later. But for now, these Lenten roses are definitely the star of the show. They started mid-February and have been going strong for a month. And some people don't love the older fashioned varieties that droop down, but I find it's just an invitation to kind of get on their level and really enjoy them. And they look so good in a vase, especially a high vase, because they spill out over, and especially if it is on a higher shelf and you're looking up into the faces of the flowers, it's just really special. We've missed the bloom on the Edgeworthia, but it was so fragrant about a month ago. There's these white little heads, flower heads, and of course the bees are out. They're enjoying the flowers. In about another month or so, this will all be starting to show blooms on the hydrangeas. This may just look like any other green lawn, but like everyone else with pets and small children in America, we value our green lawn space. And at the end of last fall, we had a lot of bare patches here. We had done an experiment with letting the leaves from the pecans drop and really not picking them up. What we learned is that was not a great idea because it killed off a lot of the grass underneath. Makes sense, it blocked the light. So we were left with bare patches, and at the end of last year, we overseeded with a winter rye mix, which we had never done. And this beautiful green carpet that we're enjoying now in early spring is a result of that sowing, just one sowing. So we are inspired to continue that cycle. I just ordered a bag of specially bred fescue mix that was formulated, I believe, in either Tennessee or Kentucky. I ordered it from American Meadows, and that is going to be our next overseeding when this all starts to get a little bit sad in a couple of months, because winter rye and most cool season, just that really beautiful dark green grass, doesn't like heat. So in order to attempt to keep this carpet, I'm going to do another seeding and see how that goes. But this time every year, the wild violets pop up. We actually have a lot of different things in the grass, which is totally fine with me. I don't need a monoculture of nothing but grass. These are actually edible. You can put them in your salads. And I remember as a little girl spending many happy hours outside picking violets. I like to call the lawn back here, because we don't use chemicals and it's a just happy mix of friends, a yard salad. So this is our yard salad, very literally could be yard salad. Welcome back to the Courtyard Garden. 3 stars if anyone remembers the pot of tulip bulbs that I planted up in January. These beds are now totally full of lettuce, arugula, kale, all the things. You can see actually the arugula is what's going to seed already, and a couple of the other, that might be a baby bok choy, that's the yellow. But this has provided months of salad for us, and I do several sowings. So That clump over there was one sowing. This was another sowing. That was another sowing. So it's kind of these waves. And hopefully, the theory is that they all kind of run their life cycle and bolt at a different time. And to me, other than the peas that I've sowed in here as well, the lettuce is really what I want in the spring. It's just crave green, juicy, vibrant salads this time of year. I did want to mention one thing about having gravel, and this can be an amazing thing, or in this case, a little bit of a drawback, is that you definitely over time accumulate a layer of organic matter in the gravel. So it's still, stone on top, but it doesn't take digging it down much to realize that just over time, leaves composting down, stuff blowing in, dirt washing, it develops a layer of dirt underneath. And that is the perfect seed bed for things to sprout up. And some plants love that. Something like poppies is maybe one I would try to sow on purpose, but right now it's a funny mix of weeds that come in and some lettuces that fell out of my hand probably while I was sowing the others. So the lettuces have germinated. Sometimes I have tomatoes coming up in the gravel. So that's just something to note if you're thinking about a gravel space in your garden. It is not maintenance free. Like over time, it will have to be refreshed. We've had this one 3 years, so it's been interesting to kind of see as the layer of organic matter builds up, just how many weeds the space itself wants to harbor. Just like I mentioned, you can eat the wild violets that were growing out in the lawn. You can eat pansies and violas. So the littles are violas, the big ones are pansies. Those are totally edible as well, just as long as, of course, you're not spraying them with anything that you wouldn't want to be eating. I have radishes coming up here, a few more scattered lettuces. That big fluffy thing right there is bachelor's button. Along the back fence area, I have peas and sweet peas coming up. I have bush beans and pole beans coming up in this bed along with the spinach, and the sage actually went right through the winter, and so did this snapdragon. So I intended to pull it up, but I think actually it might give me another wave of blooms. Snapdragon is something that you can sow in the fall and have it kind of overwinter and rest and then get an earlier start in the spring. It likes cooler temperatures and peters out in the dead of summer anyway. So that's one thing if you really love that long kind of foxglove looking stalk, that form of flowers, but they're not poisonous. So there's something that's good to grow in a mixed edible garden. Evergreen clematis is one of the most beautiful early spring bloomers. This arch in the past has been totally bowered in this evergreen clematis, but it is a little bit more cold sensitive. So 2 winters ago, when we had extended cold, it killed it almost back to the ground, and I thought maybe it was done for, but it has come back, and I'm hopeful that by the end of the season, the arch will be covered again with these beautiful white flowers. It fills a nice niche for an evergreen climber with a beautiful spring bloom. The big flowered clematis bloom a little bit later. And further down, it's not blooming now, but another one of my very favorite spring plants is this white spirea. It's the variety Ogon. It turns bright yellow and orange in fall, and in spring it's absolutely covered with arching white blooms. All of the branches are essentially white and overflowing at a time when not really much has come into bloom yet. It's very early, and that makes it really dramatic. Since the last time we took a trip through the cutting garden in January, I have done my big cutback of all of the perennial dead material to make way for the new growth. And the new growth is happening. It still looks like a lot of things are sleeping, and they are, but the peonies are coming up. The basil rosettes of a lot of the perennials are starting to reflush. That's exciting. And I have some more pruning This time my pruning is to finish the shrubs, deadhead my dwarf vitex over here, finish pruning my roses, and then it will just be a waiting game. And about a month from now, this is going to look very, very different. We grew this clumping bamboo originally thinking that it would be a good privacy plant. I did a whole episode on why that is not the case, but we've kept it for the use as garden support canes. So I am over here with this bamboo to cut a few stalks for bean trellises and clematis trellises. I'm choosing the old canes that either died on their own or got killed off by cold, so that, for one, I'm getting them out of the way. And I'll trim these down, take the little fluffies off them. But I want these to keep growing, the healthy ones to have a little bit longer to get big and sturdy, so that in time I can harvest them also. Welcome to the most romantic spot in the entire garden for about a week of the year. This is a weeping cherry, and it is an old, venerable tree. A couple of years ago, Duke came through and wanted to chop it down, and I came out here and I begged them to please do a precision V cut through the middle of the tree where the power lines are going, rather than cutting it down, because every year this is just such a special show. It takes a long time to get this really dramatic. If you see a tree in the nursery, it's basically a twig with a few little pendulous branches, but if you have a chance to be under a big one, it really is special. Another weeping cherry moment is framing this left side corner of our new dining pavilion. I think the last time I showed this view in January, we had 4 posts, no roof, no floor. This is a spot we plan to spend a lot of time with family and friends throughout the spring, summer, and fall seasons. It is not totally polished and finished yet. I have plans to get the perfect table, do some planting to soften the back sides, and vines up the 2 sides. I actually have, I'll just show you. I ordered some vine irons. Well, this is not really what they're for. I think they're to hang baskets, but they're going to be vine irons for me that go right up here. And basically, they're like 2 arms that will support vines to just train across the top of this fascia piece. My goal with this is just to really surround it in plants. So yes, it is a structure, but it feels very ensconced in the garden. Here are a couple of the bamboo canes that I just cut, and I have a big flowered clematis right here. This one is bluish purple. That last year I had a little triad teepee trellis that it grew on. And this, let's see where it's coming from. Just going to redo it again this year. This path garden looks incredible in April. There's lots of irises and peonies at that time. So the next garden tour will be really fun for this little area. I had daffodils in February. It's one of those spots that kind of goes in waves of interest. Well, that's not absolutely gorgeous, but it'll do. And I'll just give it a wrap and tie, just really to give this plant something to climb on. And they look a little gnarly, but these spots that the leaves shot off of the bamboo canes actually do serve a purpose. You don't really have those when you get them from Home Depot, where they've already been totally trimmed off, but they can help can sort of wrap and sit a vine on those little notches. It's just a little bit of a toehold, as it were. Now's the part that I talk about spring jobs, or jobs for the rest of the month of March. These are things I need to do, and maybe you're super responsible and you've already done all of them, in which case, good for you. But the things that I'm going to be doing for the rest of March are finishing pruning my hydrangeas. I have a good start on that. I actually just did a video 2 weeks ago on pruning different types of hydrangeas. I did a good number of them then, but I have a few more to finish up. And same with pruning my roses. I've done some, and I have a few more to finish up. That's a big one. Another one is just keeping an eye on my seedlings. So I have about a dozen trays of seedlings under lights in my cellar that hopefully by the time our last frost date hits in, well, exactly a month from now, the middle of April, they'll be ready to come outside and plant either into the kitchen garden, the courtyard garden, or into the cutting garden. So I will be babysitting those inside for another month. And last, I referenced this, but I have some things to plant around the pavilion to really integrate it into the surrounding landscape. So I will be doing an order in getting those things planted. That should be plenty to keep me busy. So best of luck to you also in your gardening endeavors.